Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the TowPro Liberty brake controller on a 2023 Toyota 4Runner. Now this is what the Redarc looks like when it's installed, and compared to a lot of your traditional brake controllers that you see mounted up on a dash that you inevitably hit your knees on, the Redarc really does a fantastic job of making it look like an OEM brake controller. As you can see, even with this factory knockout plate, the button matches all of the controls here. It's hidden out of the way, but it's still super accessible and equally as usable as any other brake controller. Just like any other brake controller, you can pick between two modes. You can have it to where it's user controlled, or you can have it proportional to the braking. Pretty easy. So right now it's at 0. It's not going to be putting any gain on there, but the heavier the trailer, you just go up a little bit, and if you need to adjust it while driving, it's going to keep it at that setting. And that is also super easy to get your manual override here by just pushing the button, or you can have it proportional, so as much as you hit the brakes, it's going to kick on. And to swap between the two modes, it's just a double tap, so it's super easy. Now as far as install goes, it's incredibly easy to do, and it gives you a really clean package overall once it's done. If you are looking for a brake controller for your 4Runner and you're just shopping around, this is the one to go to. My friend recently just put one on his, and I did it in his driveway in about 15 minutes. So it was really cool. He was excited about it, and it works fantastic. So definitely a great option. Now this one in particular is for 1 to 2 axles. If you need to step up to 3 axles, which probably isn't something you'd be towing with this, there is another option available, and that's the TowPro Elite. It installs exactly the same, but the main difference is just going to be the fact that you can have up to 3 axles. When picking up your brake controller for your 4Runner, you're going to want to get this adapter harness, and this is going to make it super easy as far as, just really plugging it into the factory tow package, and then this will go into our brake controller. So you'll be happy to know there's 0 wire splicing, there's 0 having to tie into anything electrical. We're really just going to plug this in, get our ground, and then make the rest of our connections. Before you know it, you'll have your brake controller installed. Our first step is going to be locating our factory tow package plug. So you're going to check right by where your parking brake is, kind of by the footrest, and you're going to see there's a large wire grouping. It kind of looks like a main harness there, and there's going to be a zip tie as well as 1 wrap of tape that's around this white plug. So if you cut that zip tie and cut that piece of tape, just make sure you don't nick any of the wires. You're going to be able to pull that plug down a little bit easier and give you a little bit more room to work. So now that we have our plug accessible, this is just simply going to snap into it, so you can make sure that that's plugged in. But we do have this ground wire with a ring terminal, and finding a factory ground makes it nice and easy. You don't have to put any self-tapping screws in. And I did find a 10mm bolt. You can use a 10mm socket to get it loose, and it's kind of right by the parking brake. It bolts into the side. It kind of faces this way, so with a socket and a ratchet, you can take that off, and that's going to become a good grounding point for our ground wire. So I'm going to go ahead, I'll get this plugged in and then kind of show you how it looks. I was able to get this ring terminal mounted up. You're just going to take a look at where your hood latch release is and just kind of look, it's bolted in. It kind of points to the outside of the vehicle. Again, a 10mm socket's going to loosen that up. So put the ring terminal on there, tighten it back down, and that's 1 step already down. We are going to be mounting up our brake controller in one of these knockout panels, and we actually picked up a Redarc knockout panel specifically for Toyotas. It's really nice because there's no drilling involved, and if you were to ever take the braking system to another vehicle, you can just put that factory one back in. You don't have any holes drilled for mounting. To gain access not only to knock out the knockout plates, but also to get everything plugged in and mounted up, I'm going to just pull on this portion of our dash. It's going to loosen it up. So just kind of reach your fingers between the steering column and the plastic and just kind of pull back. It doesn't take much pressure here, but this is going to kind of drop it down and give us a lot of access. So while I have this open, I'm going to take my plug and route it up, trying to keep it along the side. We want to make sure that there's no interference with our parking brake. So just kind of pull that plug up, and then we'll continue by connecting everything else together. Now you do want to determine which knockout panel you want to use to mount up your controller. So sit in the vehicle and kind of pretend that you're driving down the road and that you want to use the manual override. Figure out which one's the most comfortable. I'm going to go ahead and kind of mount ours up here. So pretty easy to get these knockout panels. There's just 2 push tabs. You just kind of push on the top and bottom here, and then that just slides out. So now we'll take our knockout plate and put this in place. And just kind of make sure it's nice and straight. Push it in. And that looks nice and factory now. Now there's a hole, and that's where our light is going to shine through. So make sure that you have your brake controller in that orientation. And we're just going to kind of slide this back through here. And make sure that clear light is passing through the hole there. We're then going to take our retainer nut here, and we'll just kind of thread this on here. Just by hand. Just make sure it's seated properly. It should go on fairly easily. And then to snug it down, a 12mm socket, you can just put that on there and just hand snug it. It doesn't have to get crazy tight here. You know, just a quick hand tightening should be enough. And this is going to be kind of the Ethernet style plug here that's going to go into the back of our controller. Now, you have options. This one has a 90 bend, this one's straight. Looks like it's a pretty clear shot here, but what I'm going to do is take our 90 and pop this into our controller. So I suggest you don't have to undo the twist ties here on both sides, just enough to get clearance, because we're going to be mounting everything pretty close. So just for cable management sake, I'm going to leave this one on here. And that's snapped in. So now we're left with the connector for this and then our main one. So we'll just grab our main unit, and those are going to just plug in. And already we saw the light just kick on, so that's a great sign that it's going to be working. We do need to get this mounted in a spot that it's not going to be moving around. Using G-force, you know, this has to calibrate itself, which it'll do while you just normally drive, but you don't want to have this moving around. It can alter the braking inputs that it's going to have. So finding something solid to mount it on with some zip ties is going to be key. Try not to use any wire loom or anything that might be movable. So I'm going to find us a nice mounting point and show you how it looks. So I've gone ahead and I got this mounted up. I just ran a zip tie through a loop around this support beam for the dash, and then I attached two zip ties together and did the same thing on the bottom. And so this is a pretty solid mount with just zip ties. The rest of the wiring, you are going to have some excess, so I just kind of bundled mine up, zip tied it, and then zip tied it up to some of the factory wiring up here just to kind of keep it out of the way. So now once you have that all in place and you're happy with all your cable management, everything zip tied, you can pop this back in place. For the finishing touch, we're going to take our dial, make sure that it's turned all the way counterclockwise, and that's going to put it at 0. So you can grab your knob, look for the 0, and then just align it with that light right there. So once you have yours installed, if you're immediately hooking up to your trailer, once you put your 7-pole on and attach the trailer to it, it's going to have this blue and green blinking, and that's just a calibration to determine where the Redarc is mounted. That's a great part. You can mount it in really any direction, and it's going to calibrate just as you use this. Now, to get this to become a solid blue and fully calibrated with your trailer, you're going to want to hit the brakes, just kind of get up to about 15-20 miles per hour, hit the brakes, and then you're going to continuously do that, and that's going to learn to eventually become a solid blue button. At that point, it's calibrated. But if you're not hooking up to your trailer right away, not to worry. This will also pick up just normal driving and kind of calibrate itself. So if you plug in your trailer later on, it should be a solid blue. So after going around, I had to hit the brakes maybe about 10 times, and I just kind of watched my light. Once it became solid blue, we're good to go. And what's nice too is with this, you can set the gain. The blue stays the same, but if you're manually overriding, you can see that the color changes as it gets more intense. So obviously 10 is going to be bright red, and then as your brake intensity goes down on the gain, it's going to go to a cool blue. And that was a look at installation of the Redarc Tow Pro Liberty brake controller on a 2023 Toyota 4Runner.